Alright, hello everybody. Today I just wanted to be going over some mana management of the Disc Priest. So for the Disc Priest, you have, majority of your healing is done through burst healing. So putting out a whole bunch of radiances, penance, light's wrath, all that sort of good stuff. Having mana for specific parts in fights where it's most effective is quite important for when you're playing a Disc Priest, and mana management is a big part of the Disc Priest as well. It's another thing that is kind of another level of complexity to Disc, which makes the spec really interesting and fun to play with. So I just want to go over just some of our Odin prog. And just kind of the idea behind some of the things we're doing. So, you can see here that overall we're doing 370k HPS, but there's one consistent thing that we have during this whole fight. So in phase 1, nothing much really happens, and the whole idea for me and majority, I think all of the healers are pretty much exiting the phases with full mana. So what does that mean for you as Dis? That means you really don't, use Radiance at all. You try and sit there and conserve as much as possible. And you can see by doing that, we're pretty low on the effective healing. Now, you can see majority of my healing done here is through Powered Shield. I am running the Shield Discipline talent, so Powered Shield is fairly mana efficient to cast. And because we're not mass applying atonements, you see that the overhealing that I am doing to targets with atonement is massive. So we have 64% overhealing done in this phase here. So what I'm majorly doing in this first phase is just Purge of the Wicked, all the ads, penancing when it's up, and all that good stuff. So it's really just in phase 1 and 2 you can see phase 1, you can see that I'm really just focused on dotting as many of the ads as possible. You can see I've done about 3.5 million to the Rune Bearers in this first phase here. So that's pretty much majority of what I'm concerned about. I'm just keeping atonement on the tanks and just making sure that when I exit phase 1, hold up, we'll just go to mana here for Carl. So you can see at the end of phase 1, I am at 105k out of 110k. And that's, there's not that much healing going out in the first phase, and I can show you that by, look at the overhealing for all the healers, 40%, 37%, 38%, and this means as well that pretty much everyone here is pretty much healing more than they have to in this first phase. There is, there's a bit of spike damage, but there's nothing that really can kill you. There's a Horn of Valor that comes out, you heal that up, and then there's nothing until the Shield of Light. There's not much going on, especially in this first phase. So, reducing this overhealing here could be something that's quite beneficial for all our healers, and just making sure that they're actually doing some damage as opposed to healing, and that they're leaving phase 1 with full mana. You can see if we go back to here, resources, let's have a look at our Resto Druid. So leaving phase 1 full mana, Paladin leaving phase 1 almost full mana, and that should pretty much be consistent. Now our Shaman is not leaving phase 1 with full mana, and you can kind of see why this is. So through the healing they're doing here, you can see that they're 40% overhealing, doing 279k HPS in a phase where everyone else here is overhealing a lot, and especially when you have like Disc Priest, druids, people who just can passively heal. Monks can passively heal quite well. That casting less for our Shaman in this point would be more beneficial and saving your mana for the end phases than it would to actually be using the mana at this point. Now to highlight why this is effective in what I'm doing, so we're leaving phase 1 with full mana, and then you can see that I'm pretty much well below everyone else here. But then you can see in phase 2, we're picking it up. We're doing a 442k average across this entire phase. And that's when we start to, come ahead with the rest of Druid. And that's where you really see Disc Priest, shining through. As the overhealing gets reduced, as you can start burning some mana, you can really do a lot. And in phase 2 of this fight, there's a lot of movement going out, so you can't sit there spam casting, spam cast Radiances, spam cast Smites. You're lucky to get out an entire Innovate, standing still, getting out your Radiances. So it's really a quite a hard phase for Disc Priest to heal in, just because you are focused on getting those Radiances, 2.5 second cast times, and getting them out consistently. When there's spears coming down constantly, there's balls you have to dodge constantly, there's points around the room you have to run to constantly. There's a lot going on that phase, so being able to be effective in that phase is actually really quite difficult, especially when all your spells aren't just instant cast. So being in phase 2 then with full mana allows you to set up much better for the rest of the fight. So you can see in phase 2, we go back to mana, we'll go back to me. So phase 2, you can see we go from 100% mana, and we pretty much dip all the way down to the bottom, and then we lay Torrent Potion back up. You can see just how much mana I'm getting at this point just from trinkets, Blessing of Wisdom, and a potion. So we're gaining a rather large amount through this. So having decent sources that regenerate you mana is pretty important, whether that comes through the neck, potions, whatever. So, and then you can see we enter phase 3 then with about 520k mana. So we're just under 50% going into phase 3, and phase 3 really isn't that long. Now this was actually a 1% wipe, and you can see kind of in phase 3 here how we don't really dip that low, so we could be spamming a whole lot more than I was. It was just people were dying to other things rather than instant death. I don't think we wiped here because of a throughput issue. So but you can see the healing in this phase, I believe, was still rather quite high if we look at it all. So we're still sustaining 429. And the other healers here are 300k, 300k, 370k. So the healing in the last phase isn't really that intense. It's people more just getting insta hit to mechanics. So phase 2 for Odin is really where you want to be dumping your mana, and that's where you can see pretty much exactly what I was doing when we look at all phases. So phase, not hit points, mana. So phase 1 maxed, phase 2 go down to 0, phase 3 we potion, get back up, and then we can sustain through phase 3. And that is an effective way of playing Disc Priest, and it's just something you really want to be managing effectively if you want to be getting through, especially these long mythic fights. So I hope this was kind of informative for anyone who's having maybe some mana issues with Disc Priest. Maybe you're focusing healing on parts of the fight where you really don't need to be, and you're just overhealing. You can see if I was to be spam healing in phase 1 right now, when I'm doing 77% overhealing on my atonements, as it is, and there's really quite ineffective to do that. So I'm staying at full mana throughout this entire phase, and I'm still getting 77% overhealing on all my atonements. So when you're playing Disc Priest, it's very important to plan out your fight. Make sure you have goals for each point. Make sure you can set out your innovates. I'm only doing this. I don't actually use an innovate in phase 1. I only have one innovate during this fight. One innovate from a druid. Sorry, so I get it at the first Horn of Valor, and then I get it at one of the tank debuff things in phase 3. So I'm not really cheesing with 2 boomkins for innovates where I can just spam my heart out for the entire attempt. I've only got 1 to play with, and where I'm not really having mana issues at all in Odin. So being able to plan out what you want to do is quite important. So anyway, I hope this helped people. I hope this was informative, and I hope people can kind of appreciate how you need to plan your mana out to be effective in healing as a Disc Priest. Well, thanks for watching, and I will see you later.